Welcome to the Emisarios Unidos de Luz channel. If you enjoy this near-death experience story, consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. Now let's start with the story. I was bleeding heavily after giving birth as I was suffering from a condition called placenta accreta. 3 days later, after losing a lot of blood, I was rushed to the emergency room for a third operation, and it was during that operation that I died. Immediately after losing consciousness, I became aware of the absolute darkness of the void I found myself in. In the distance, I saw a dazzling, bright white light, a light that seemed to beckon me and of which I felt magnetically drawn. I thought about reaching that light, and even as I was thinking that very thought, I suddenly found myself immersed in that extremely bright light. Within the aegis of the all-pervasive light, I recognized the light within the core of my being, and instinctively, I knew that the light was the boundless, all-pervasive, and formless God the Father. In the peace and stillness of the holy light, I sensed a sweet, gentle, and loving presence that I knew instantly that I would be able to communicate with. That presence seemed so amused that I would give my focused attention to puzzle over why I felt I was only able to connect intimately with a certain part of the ubiquitous and endless light. The presence seemed to be laughing joyfully as it shared in the joy, ecstasy, and awe that I was experiencing. It was as if that spirit or presence understood my bliss, and it itself was sharing in my experience of rapture and elation. By the sweet, loving, joyful, and ecstatic energy the presence emanated, I recognized that I was indeed in the presence of Jesus, and I knew that it was because of Jesus that I was in that place of divine joy and happiness. As the divine light surrounded and enveloped my being, I could feel my essence melding and merging with the source of boundless peace and bliss. The divine presence filled me with a peace that was far beyond what I imagined was the quintessential state of peace. It was that ineffable peace that everyone searches for in life, but that remains elusive. As I merged with the light of that exquisite peace, it was apparent to me that the people of the world are constantly searching for that consummate peace in their relationships, through religious practices, and in their pursuit of wealth and luxuriant living. I realized that people search for peace in their material pursuits but are never truly satisfied because what they truly yearn for cannot be found in the objects or in the institutions that affirm one's identification with the physical body. I was shown by the presence of Jesus particular events of my life, events that happened so long ago and that I have since forgotten. In one such memory, when I was 5 years old, I was humiliated by my teacher in my kindergarten class for not knowing the answer to a question she asked the class. From the elevated vantage point of unity with that ultimate peace, I was able to see with complete objectivity and clarity the inflated importance I had attributed to that moment. Jesus and I laughed at how overly embarrassed I was at the time, and it reminded me how, as humans, our egos are so easily bruised. Jesus showed me, via a stream of images, the moments of my past that seemed so important to me at the time, and yet, as important as they were, I had completely forgotten them. They were like all of the moments of my life, but over time, they had faded in their significance to me. From the vantage point of oneness with the divine body, my earthly existence seemed trivial and insignificant, and I realized in that realm and in that experience of boundless grandeur and magnificence that I had attributed too much importance to my life and the events of my life. Jesus showed me that my life was just a series of events that were now in the past, and by virtue of them being in the past, they no longer held any meaning. He showed me that He is eternal, that He is life, and that death doesn't exist. I wondered about the negative feelings, disappointments, and struggles that people experience and the things that people attribute importance to on earth. God, You are in control of my life, I kept repeating like an affirmation, and as I repeated those words, I could feel the realm of the spirit grow in its significance while the earthly realm diminished in its significance. Suddenly, I heard a voice screaming, and I knew that I was returning to my body. I said to Jesus that I didn't want to go back and that I wanted to stay with Him. You have a husband who loves you very much, He replied, and even though I knew that I should return, I was disappointed and angry to be returning. It was then that I looked downward, and in that moment that I saw my physical body, it was as though I was looking at something that had nothing to do with me. Why is my body screaming? I wondered, but before I had a chance to contemplate as to why, I quite suddenly reunited with it. Back inside my body, I realized I was screaming because I began to feel pain as the anesthetic wore off. Even though my NDE happened some time ago, I still feel resentment for having to return to Earth, and I spend a lot of time daydreaming to try and recapture the experience of the realm of the divine, as I fear that eventually the memory of that experience will completely have faded away. My experience of the divine has transformed my relationship to religion and God, and many of the things that I used to regard in awe and reverence, I no longer venerate as I once did. I am also able to see through the veil of illusions to know those who truly reflect the Spirit of God and those who do not. Generally, I don't take my life too seriously these days, as my experience has made me aware that life is temporary, short, and not as significant as I once regarded it. My near-death experience was a wonderful one. God's message to me was that He is in control of everything. He communicated to me that our corporeal experiences and our emotional reactions to them are insignificant and irrelevant when viewed from the vantage point of the spirit, that life in the physical body is but a very fleeting interval in the journey of the spirit,